Welcome to At the Table with Tony. My name is Anthony Shelia, better known as Tony Manja. And tonight's going to be a special night. I'm going to start off by saying that. Actually, the next 2 days are going to be very special because we have a very special guest tonight. We have members of the Italian Enclaves Society joining us tonight at our 8 p.m. show, and then tomorrow afternoon on our 4 p.m. show. So you are not going to want to miss this. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to let each of the members introduce themselves. You know who I am. I'm Anthony Shelia, Tony Manja, so I don't have to do any introduction here. But we'll start off with Ray. Ray is the founder of the Italian Enclave Society. So, Ray, please tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about the society, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me again. I had
so
much fun on your show and so much fun listening to it. And last night with the Bishop Caggiano from Bridgeport, that was a great show. Every show you do is just really, really great. So thanks so much for having us, and I'm so glad you're a board member. The Italian Enclaves Historical Society was just created last year, but the genesis of it really goes back to about 7-8 years ago now. I was at work, and one of my buddies who happened to be working with me at the time was like my oldest friend. We've known each other for 35 years. And we were just reminiscing about some places that are in our neighborhood. We're from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And it just came up, hey, such and such place. I've been dying to go there. I think it was an A&S pork store on 5th Avenue between 86th and 87th Streets in Bay Ridge. And at the time, I believe they were closing, whatever it was. So it dawned on me. I said, you know what? I wonder if this is happening everywhere, because a lot of places started to close about 10 years ago or so. And it started really rapidly happening 7-8 years ago. And I figured, I wonder how many Italian neighborhoods there really are. I wonder how many of these places exist, and if so, if this is happening all across the country, or is it just happening in Brooklyn? I mean, I know it's a trend, but let's go out and see. So on the weekends, to break up the monotony of work, I mean, I work in private equity investment banking, so it's long hours. It's a pretty grueling job, but it's a lovely business, and we're very blessed to be in it. But nevertheless, on the weekends, you want to really, do stuff that's fun. So we took to taking road trips, and I started creating a little catalog, a little list of places to go. And I said, you know what? Let's take photographs of these places and the key businesses that are there in the churches, because aside from the businesses closing, the churches were closing too. So we went out, and one of the first places we actually went to was Connecticut. We didn't go to Bridgeport, but we went to New Haven and South Hartford. And then we eventually made our way up to Boston and certain places in Rhode Island and stuff like that. So that's how it started. And after a while, it just became like addictive. Like, this is so much fun. It's a great way to go out and just, get out of the regular routine. The food, of course, was, as you know, Tony, an amazing benefit. That, I mean, I've got to say, it was like, really, I'm having too much fun. So that's what we did. After a while, it became habit, and it was, the list just kept growing. And so I created a little social media page on Facebook, and I asked all my friends and family to follow it. And ever since then, that was it. It was history. So at one point I said, it started getting expensive. So I said, to my friend Larry, you know what? I got to say, I really wish there would be a better way I could fund this. And at the time, I didn't think of doing setting up a nonprofit. So I created a little online Shopify account business, and we were selling little items and stuff like that. And it was really great. It took off, but it was a second job essentially that I really couldn't accommodate. I had a son, at the time, my Raymond was about 3. So it was very hard. So, just last year, after I was involved with the Italian American Baseball Foundation, which is an amazing organization, by the way, amazing. I was sitting with Mike DeSapio, who's on our board, and Mike actually had the foresight to wear a jersey that says Italia. I'm wearing the Yankees jersey. And so, Mike said, you really should do this in the form of a nonprofit. We sat down, carved it out, and lo and behold, here we are a year later. And the goal of it is very simple: to create an online catalog of every single, to the best of our capability, Italian neighborhood that's ever existed in America since the mass migrations of the 1800s and the late 1800s, as well as their churches, because as we know, so many of them are being closed down.
Yeah, I mean, this needs to be done, because, like you said, if not now, then when, and then it'll be lost forever. So it
Exactly.
really needs to be done because, again, so many this country was built on the backs of so many Italian and Italian Americans that this is a little homage to them, even, to think about it. This is a little bit way of saying thank you for what you did for us all these years ago, and that we're still here, and we're still the Italians, the Italian Americans really are a force to be reckoned with in America.
You said it. You said it. So what ended up happening, Tony, was you and we met virtually through social media. And so that story resonates because that's exactly how I met everybody else that's on the board. It was all through social media. So the power of social media, if harnessed properly and for good things, is just, it's an immense thing that should never, ever be underestimated. And so we ended up, you and I, and communicating and doing a lot of overlapping stuff. And it was just great through mutual friends that we have. And people started reaching out to me. So I want to mention one of those people who's on with us now, Mike Grillo, reached out through social media and invited me to Newark. And Tony, I know that's your backyard, and Danielle Ferranti as well. And so even Michelle is from Jersey too. So we got all the Jersey folks and Mike DeSapio. But Mike invited me down to go see St. Lucy's in Newark, and I couldn't wait. And to be able to have such a firsthand opportunity with a tour guide like Mike, it was a blessing. So I showed up. Mike gave me a tour like no other. We hopped in his car. I hopped in the back seat of his car. One of his friends was in the front, and they drove me around. They took me to a few great places, and that was really one of the pivotal points where I said, this is going to be a life's work for me, and I'm never going to stop because it's so much fun. I'm meeting such amazing, great people. And that was it. It kind of just really from there really skyrocketed. So I owe it to everybody that I've come in contact with that's on my board so much, because you guys have really fed the fuel behind this.
Excellent. Let's go to Stephanie next. Stephanie Longo. So you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Italian Enclaves Historical Society.
Sure thing. So hi, everybody. My name's Stephanie Longo, as Tony said, and I am from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I am the associate producer of the Italian American podcast. I know that Tony has had Pat and John on before with him, and I'm the new kid in town. I just started there in January, and it is totally a dream job, and I love it. Here in Pennsylvania, I am a writer of local history. So I have 3 books out on our local history. And Ray and I connected on Instagram for the first time about maybe a year and a half ago to 2 years ago. And it was just a wonderful feeling because I didn't know that my books traveled outside of Northeastern Pennsylvania. I was actually very surprised by that when I saw that Ray was selling my books in his little Shopify store with the Italian Enclaves in its first iteration. And I reached out and we just became good friends right then and there. We just developed a wonderful rapport via social media, just talking and realizing there's somebody out there like me who actually loves this stuff. I'm not an island unto myself with this passion that I love, but I kind of felt like I was the oddball here that really didn't have anybody, especially out here in Northeastern Pennsylvania. We have a wonderful Italian community here, except that people, when they think of Pennsylvania's Italian communities, their first thought goes to Philadelphia, then their next thought goes to Pittsburgh. Scranton is totally left off of that map. And my role is, hey, wait a minute, Northeastern Pennsylvania, all 13 counties that comprise our region, we have an Italian presence. So to be able to promote that through the Italian Enclave Society is just a wonderful feeling. And to be able to use the talents too that I have with marketing and PR and historic research all in one place on a board with people who feel the same way I do, it's just a wonderful feeling. So I can't thank Ray enough. And just getting to know other people now that have the same passion. I mean, you wake up every day. I already wake up every day and I have my dream job that I go to, and then my dream volunteer job that I have, which sometimes volunteer work can be really tough. And, it can sometimes be a little soul sucking. This is not soul sucking. This is actually a lot of fun. I love working with these people. I can't say it enough.
Likewise, Stephanie. Thanks.
Thanks, Ray.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. Next, we'll go over to Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Michelle DiPietro. I live in New York City, but I have proud Jersey roots. So I actually grew up in South Jersey, not in an Italian enclave, but come from strong Italian enclaves. My grandparents were immigrants from Italy in the early 1900s. And, my dad's family and my dad grew up in Camden, New Jersey, when it was actually a really thriving Italian American neighborhood. And my mom's parents, Philadelphia, and then Vineland, New Jersey, which a lot of Italians down there as well, a lot of farmers and farmland. And, just like Stephanie, you and I must have connected with Ray around the same time, because I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Ray reached out to me on Instagram. We met up for coffee at Italy downtown, and we hit it off, and we just kind of kept in touch. And then we were talking about possible collaboration on something else, but it really just, it kept coming back to Italian Enclaves and how can we work together. And then when Ray said that he was going to make this into a nonprofit, of course I wanted to be involved. And he says that the goal is to document and to catalog everything, and cataloging through photos mainly, right, through interviews, through document with people, through personal accounts, but also of course through its recipes and food. And I think that's where I come in, and that's where I hope to contribute the most, by curating that part of Italian Enclaves, because obviously there's a lot of commonality in all the recipes and food with all of Italian Americans, but there's also regional specialties and whatnot. So I hope to dig down a little bit more into that. I am a chef. I've been in the food business for over 20 years. I started out as a CPA, believe it or not. I did that Big Six for a little while before I got into the food business. But I have a professional background and actually have written recipes professionally for most of my career. And Mangia with Michelle, and after being at a big corporation for a really long time, I kind of went off on my own. And for about the past 3 years, I've been an independent consultant. And as many of us who have been independent know, it's feast or famine, right? So one of those times when it's famine, I was just thinking about like, hey, wonder if there's what else could I possibly do? And that's where Mangia with Michelle was born. And that's my social media account. It's a blog I'm working on, and it's my brand, my personal brand that I'm most passionate about right now in my life. I've spent my career in food service, but what I'm finding now is I'm most passionate about home cooking and connecting with people that are cooking at home and helping to bring back memories for them of the foods that they grew up with. There's a big element of nostalgia with the recipes that I develop and work on, because I am Italian American. I mean, a lot of them are nostalgic to me personally. And that's the commonality with, as you know, food brings people together. So, I hope that with my background, both professional and my blogging background, what I hope to bring to Italian Enclaves is the food history of the enclaves.
And I have to say, Michelle, I've been watching your Instagram stories. I'm dying. Look at all the amazing food you're putting up there.
She has great music on there too.
Oh man, it's amazing.
Amazing.
I don't want to get too far off track, but I do want to say you made something yesterday. It was like a meatless meatball.
It was basically a cheese, egg, and bread ball. That's called what is it called? Palote cace e ova in Abruzzese, and I'm happy to say it.
That's very. I mean, again, we'll talk about more about this. That's amazing, because it's actually, I have a friend that's from Molfetta, and his family makes something almost exactly like that, and they call it egg balls or egg
right.
meatball.
Yeah, like it was the only region to make that, but that's my link to it. But you see beans or bread balls all over the South, in Sicily and Bari, obviously. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. All right, so we're Danielle, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Danielle Ferrante. I'm from a small town in New Jersey called Burnsville. I met Ray through Michael Grillo. Michael Grillo and I met in college through an alliance of Italian clubs that existed at the time. And during that time, I was the president of Fairleigh Dickinson's Italian Club. Michael was the president of Rutgers, and we all came together to work together as a unified group, because we found at the time that we were stronger as a group. And as it turns out, through that organization, I met all my friends through that group, because I felt I had folks that had that similar background, that similar upbringing. And so it was a great time to be an Italian American. We traveled, we organized tons of events that were for young Italian Americans and it was widely successful. And many of those folks are still friends with us today. And that's how we met some of our bestest friends. I met my husband that way. So it turned out really, really great for all of us. And so that's how I came to Ray. I've always been a very passionate about preserving the Italian culture and the Italian heritage, because, you know, we hear it all the time. We hear it on the Italian American podcast that, you know, we wish we spent time with our grandmother, listening a little bit more, writing things down, spending that time with them to learn history. You know, there are services like Ancestry.com, which has helped me immensely gain a lot of knowledge on my ancestral background in Italy, which has been great, and slowly kind of combing through all those details. But you know, I truly love it, and I'm truly excited to be a part of the Italian Enclave team. My part here, I might be the most recent member, right? Joining.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I'm super excited. I'm going to hopefully, when this all kind of passes, work on fundraising, because it takes a lot of work, as Ray can attest to travel the country and take all this documentation down. You know, I think one of the long-term goals is to, you know, have recordings of some of the folks that are still in the community talk about that history and kind of have that living history, so that kind of lives on forever. So I'm super excited to be a part of the team, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll move along to Mike DeSapio.
All right. Hey, Tony.
How are you, my friend?
Am I in the center square on the screen, or what? That's what I was
see, it's weird because on YouTube you're a different spot, but on my screen you're someplace.
Ray's got the best setup, though. He looks like an angel. He's got like a halo. But yeah, so like everybody else, you know, I met Ray a few years ago. We talked at the Italian American Baseball Foundation annual dinner, but we'd met briefly a few years earlier when you were a speaker at the NIAF conference, the annual gala weekend. So I started following his Instagram page shortly thereafter, and I think that was one of the first pages I followed on Instagram, because I was a newcomer. And oh, it was so great, like just to see all the neighborhoods, the current neighborhoods, the old neighborhoods. So yeah, we were definitely kindred spirits when we started talking about this. And like everybody else on this screen, we were kind of like taking the Italian American culture and going pro. You know, that's what we do in our free time, and most of us, that's what we do in our professional lives too. So yeah, it's just a great crew. I mean, everybody kind of met virtually, but it's such a, like, everybody has such a passion. It's so infectious. So I told them I definitely want to be on board with this. And all our meetings are over food, which we do about 5 minutes of business, and then we eat. I think the one we didn't have food was our shortest meeting yet. So,
but news, guys, we're never going to run out of an enclave at this point. There's so many of them. That's right. I've done many more meetings.
Yeah. But it was just such, like, you know, it's such an important thing to do, especially as we get further away from the immigrant generation, you know, for people and people our age and younger to remember this history and document it. I mean, there's so many books written about the Italian American culture, but this is something very unique. You know, it's a lot of fun to, you know, help any way we can. So Ray's really got a good team together, and we look forward to it.
Thank you, Mike. And last but not least, of course, we have Michael Grillo. Michael, welcome.
How are you, Tony?
Good, my friend.
So like Ray was saying, I met Ray when I asked him to come and visit St. Lucy's. St. Lucy's Church is home to the Feast of St. Gerard, over 120-year-old feast. And Tony, I know you from Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So those are the two Italian churches in North New Jersey. And these feasts are such an important part of our culture, because they're really the backbone, the tradition. People move away, but they always still come back. And so what Ray is doing by preserving and promoting these things, I learned so much stuff by looking, you know, stores, restaurants, feasts from Italian enclaves, and then Tony, stuff that you put up. So really, it's an important thing. And then what I do for a living, I'm an Italian teacher at the Hanover Park High School District in New Jersey, which luckily is a very Italian American district. So what's nice is a lot of the Italian American traditions that are showcased on everything that you do, I teach the kids about. And it's nice to see a younger generation, 15, 16, 17 years old, being, into their culture. It's nice to know that, yeah, everybody says the neighborhoods are changing, but there's still an interest even in the younger people. So I think that's what, as a group, but everybody, Michelle, Mike, Ray, the Italian American podcast, Tony, what all of you were doing, and it's so important really for our culture as a whole.
Excellent. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And now we're in a time where it's hard to get out to really support these Italian enclaves. And I think maybe something we could talk a little bit about. I know me and Ray, we talked briefly about, some things we wanted to cover. I think something important is that even if we can't get out, even if we can't go shopping the way we normally would at the local the local market or at the pizzeria or the whatever, the deli, there still are ways for us to support these businesses that have decided to be open, to stay open. So maybe we could talk a little bit about how we can support these Italian businesses that are still open during this coronavirus pandemic. So whoever wants to start kind of giving some ideas or talk to that point.
Sure, Tony, if you want, I'll jump in.
Yeah,
One of the
please.
things that I really, wanted to, we were like in the midst of it, was really trying to push the support Italian American businesses hashtag. And people don't even know. Some people don't even know what is a hashtag. So, to speak to the fact that what we do with this online virtual community is we bridge a very important gap. And so you have these generational gaps, and the technology gets lost in translation in a lot of cases. And you have an inefficiency where knowledge and information doesn't flow from generation to generation as you would think. So what we try to do is bridge that. And it's a very, very challenging process because you have the baby boomer generation, you have the millennial generation, you have all of us in between. So we're trying to really go ahead and create a platform for people to say, oh, well, and I'm going to just say this, right now, even though we started this a while back with the Support Italian American Business hashtag, NIAF created a list, the National Italian American Foundation, which Mike had mentioned. I was fortunate enough, John Viola invited me down several years ago, to sit on a panel, and I was amongst some of the best of breed. Rosella Rago was there, and Cassandra from Travel Italian Style. So there were a lot of other folks there that definitely have pedigree. Dolores Alfieri, I believe, was also there. So it was really, that was an honor. And that's also something to push me over the fence to do this. But NIAF created a list in light of what's going on now of Italian American businesses that are still open, so that people could go and patronize them and do business with them. But it's really, it's a crazy thing because there are so many. And, to create like one entire list is just, it's very, very, very hard. It's virtually impossible. But one of the things, though, I would say is that I would like to emphasize is really supporting the businesses that have been there for about 50 to 100 years, 25 years. Those are the ones that are really have hung in there. Oftentimes you see them changing hands or just going out of business because you have like, the newer generations of children, whatever, not wanting to take the reins. They want to go into professional businesses, whatever it is. So with all of that transition, one of the things that we would like to do is push that initiative forward to support Italian business. Just let the hashtag do all the talking. So you have to just click the hashtag, and then boom, you have all these different businesses pop up that you may not have known were there. Tony, I have to say, you are still teaching me about places in Jersey. Every other day, I'm looking at something, a piece of provolone or
makes me hungry every time I look at it.
I mean, between Michelle and Tony, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I'm learning about all these places. I just wish, like, in an ideal world, I could take off for a year and just every day go to 3 or 4 different places for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it can't. And so that's it. So we could look at it through our screens and just hope that they're there so we could get there one day.
Yeah. I'm fortunate in that I work on the road, so I am able to at least for lunch try a lot of these different places, and really it's amazing that places that have been there for 50 years, I just find out about last week, 2 weeks ago. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! This has been here. I've been driving by this place forever. I didn't even know it was here. And just like it blows my mind that there are so many great little mom and pop shops that are still persevering even when, like you said, when the next generations don't want to continue in their parents, grandparents' footsteps, they have a way of continuing, and we just have to pray that they will continue, and that maybe if it's not the same family, but maybe a different family. I have seen that too, where sometimes maybe the families change, but the business
Right.
is still the same, all the same recipes. So I think that's an interesting thing as well, is to see how many, I guess, at times the business changes, but they still stay true to the recipes, to the mission of the original owners.
The other thing is this: the regional things that Michelle mentioned before. This is one of the most intriguing parts of being able to travel, and privileges, I would call it, for Italian Enclaves over the last several years. And I mean, I've gone to San Francisco and everywhere in between, almost as many places I could have gone: Missouri, St. Louis, Kansas City, Missouri, Chicago, you name it. And so there are different styles of cooking, frankly, and that's a function of some really interesting things, such as climate, the geography or topography, right? Like, and access to fresh fish. Like in Boston, I gotta say, even though I'm from Brooklyn in New York, I've never had a better fish dish than I did up in the North End. Like the best fish I've ever had. So, and it's
What was the place? What was the place?
I don't remember the name, but in
Daily Catch? The Daily Catch?
No, it wasn't. But I do have to shout a place out in San Francisco. I don't really know them at all. I've never spoken to them, but I went there for a cioppino, which is a fisherman's stew. It's called Skoma's in North Beach. Oh my God, unbelievable. So yeah, between San Francisco and the North End in Boston, I mean, you'll find some of the best fish dishes, right? What other things, Tony, do you know about, like tomato pie? What other regional things like that differ from place to place?
Oh man, this is a question you have to ask my good friend Pat O'Boyle, because Pat O'Boyle can dissect
history in the food. Yeah, I mean,
he has a way. Like we were talking about, like just about yesterday, we did, like I said, a virtual Pasquetta party, and like Pasquetta is like, Little Easter, they call it, Easter Monday, and he was rattling off things. I was like taking in so much information. I was like information overload. I was trying to just kind of process everything, but he knows a lot about, really like the because the one thing I know that he said is very interesting is that he said that areas that the Neapolitans settled in have a richer dessert or a richer pastry culture, as opposed to, say, areas that maybe the Calabrese went to, or even the Sicilians to a certain extent, because of the ovens and stuff. I guess in these smaller towns, they didn't have, I guess, more advanced ovens. They had just pretty much a wood-fired oven. So they had to make kind of a basic, their desserts were very basic. So maybe, hard biscuits, cookies, breads, stuff like that. Whereas the Neapolitans, they were able to make these pastieras and these different pies and the casatiellos and stuff like that. So really that is an interesting thing, is to kind of, I guess, look at America as where are these different people from. And I think that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to figure out, okay, where did the Calabrese go? Where did the, from my family, they're from a town called Monte San Giacomo in Salerno. They went to Hoboken, New Jersey. That's kind of where the only place they settled, there in Brooklyn. So, I mean, that I think is an interesting thing. So actually, the thing we didn't talk about is, where are your families from in Italy?
Mine's from Naples.
Okay.
But I just wanted to mention, as far as what you said too, in when it comes to the food, we were having a conference call the other day, and we were trying to keep things light, because in light of everything, this is such a wonderful distraction. Every time we could all get together, like DeSapio said before, Mike said, whether it's in person or over the phone or anything like that, it's lighthearted conversation. It's stuff that takes your mind off whatever stresses you have. We were joking, but it's the truth. Like crawfish marinara, because you have down in Louisiana, you have all the Cajun Italians down there, right? And
yeah.
I was actually supposed to go there for St. Joseph's. I'm glad I didn't, because everything was going on. And John Viola braved it. Rosella braved it. They went down nevertheless, and blessed them for doing so. And they had some great coverage down there, which was tremendous. But down there, they have the muffalata. I don't want to steer the conversation away back to food, but I had to mention the muffalata, because who would think French bread with cold cuts and giardinetta? Who would come up with that? I don't know who came up with it. Tony, you know who came up with that?
Had to be a Sicilian, right?
right.
I think it is. I think it was. Yeah.
Had to be a Sicilian. Well, that's that. I mean, I not to steal the show, but there's a sandwich. There's a restaurant or a deli in Hoboken called the Serto Brothers, and they make some of the best focaccia from an area of Italy. They're from Alto Mura, which is in the heel. It's in the Puglia region of Italy, close to like Molfetta, Bari. And they make a sandwich there only on Saturdays. They make the focaccia. They cut it in half. They cut it open, you know, so it's like a sandwich. And they just put pieces of mortadella. It is something to die for. It's simple. I mean, it's literally focaccia and mortadella. That's it. But oh, it's one of those things. Come to Hoboken and try it.
Oh, definitely. When I was there, you know where I went? The place Fiore's on.
Oh, that's the best mozzarella. I love the mozzarella.
There's a line down the block.
You guys are killing me. I'm hungry. I should have eaten dinner before you. I gotta go.
So I don't know. We kind of said where we're from in America, but where do you guys trace your roots in Italy? So Ray, you said Naples is your family.
Yep.
Both sides.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where. That's the thing.
Okay.
I have it written down, but I don't know it off the top of my head because my family first came here 1917, 1918.
So in that first wave.
Right. And so they settled in, originally it was South Brooklyn.
Okay.
And the other side of the family was in the city. But, you know, they eventually migrated, but they didn't migrate far. That's the funny thing too. A lot of the migrational patterns, if you notice, that have occurred inside of cities I would say New York anyway, was due to the convenience of transportation. Like in Manhattan, when they built the subway system and everything else like that in the late 1800s, that revolution changed everything. So people from Harlem were able to go to the Bronx. People from downtown Manhattan were able to go to Williamsburg and other places and so a lot of folks settled in downtown Brooklyn. In a neighborhood called Carroll Gardens, and right next door in Park Slope, and so that's where they originally had settled, and then they migrated from there in I believe it was the 60s. There was a kind of a turnover in the area that they were in, the section of Park Slope that they were in, South Brooklyn border, Gowanus, all tiny neighborhoods, and then they ended up migrating out to Flatbush for a short while. There were a ton of Italians. There was a place called Pigtown in Flatbush, which was an old Italian area. And then they went all the way to Mill Basin, you know, through Old Mill Basin, parts of Marine Park, and then all the way to Flatlands. They were like by Troy Avenue, Flatlands Avenue. And so the interesting thing that I find, because what I don't study going back to the boot. That's, you know, that's where I stop. That's where the buck ends for me, because there's so much here that, you know, I can't do it all. And that's why the board has a lot of folks on that are very knowledgeable like yourself that could add to it and layer it. But as far as my knowledge goes, it's limited. And I'm intentionally keeping it for now anyway, the scope of it to what's happened here. And so that's really something that fascinated me, is that, people in Chicago, like that were in Little Sicily, which was the Italian neighborhood in Chicago, like the primary Italian neighborhood there, went up to Cicero in the suburbs. And, you know, and that's what you find. And now you go out into Long Island out east, they call it, right? So you go out to Long Island and you see a lot of people from all the boroughs either went out to Long Island, and then when they built the Verrazano Bridge, what happened? They went to Staten Island and then Jersey. And that's really it. So I find that's what fascinates me.
Is the migration pattern of when they were here, where they went?
Yes.
So somebody jump in. Where is your family's from?
I'll jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
So all four grandparents came over with the first wave, early 1900s as kids. And my mom's parents were from Provincia di Palermo, but like very in Sicily, very tiny hill towns that you probably never heard of. And then
do you know the name? Do you know the name?
Isnello and Cerda. Cerda is actually known for its artichokes. So when you go around Sicily and you ask like, have you heard of Cerda? Everybody knows Cerda because there's a big artichoke festival every spring. Isnello is near there. It's in the Madonie mountain region.
Okay.
And my dad's parents came from Teramo, which is a province in Abruzzo. Okay. And then they came, they settled in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia. Actually, everyone settled, I think, either in Philadelphia or outside of Philadelphia, except for my mom's mom, who actually settled in Mount Morris, New York, which is up by Rochester.
Wow.
I'm not 100% clear on like how she met my grandfather and how that all.
Next, somebody jump in.
I'll jump in.
Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
So my family is from a town called Guardia Lombardi in Provincia di Avellino. in Campania. I wore my Campania tonight to represent Guardia, of course. I actually have a blog on Irpinia just because it's my real passion outside of Italian American things. So always in that Italian realm. But to speak to Ray's point about the migration, so northeastern Pennsylvania has a completely different migratory pattern. So I live in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, which is traditionally a Guardier's town. So the neighborhood of Bunker Hill in Dunmore is exclusively Guardiers. Although there are other people in Dunmore of Italian origin, Bunker Hill is Guardiers. I'm on the outskirts of Bunker Hill, so I'm actually looking down into Bunker Hill, and all of my neighbors on my street are Guardiers as well, just because of there was not enough of room in Bunker Hill, so they ended up coming out this way. But the rest of northeastern Pennsylvania, depending on which Italian town in our area you're looking at, Old Forge was settled by people from Felito and Campania. The people in Jessup are from Gubbio up in Umbria. So it really depends on what you're looking at here, but they all did that because they had to be in close proximity to the coal mines. They had to be able to walk there. Mm-hmm. So it's completely different from what Ray was saying because they ended up staying put. So the people here, you're talking about 2 or 3 generations of Guardiers here in Dunmore. Is just crazy. And then the other part of my ancestry is from Lamezia Terme in Calabria. And just today, literally a few minutes before I signed on to this phone call, I found out that my family is actually related to the mayor of Lamezia, which is pretty wild. So I've never been to Lamezia, but that's definitely on my list now to check out. We consider ourselves very Guardiers in this household. As those of you that are friends of mine on Facebook know, I'm probably the Guardiers ambassador here. I don't know.
Tony, I just want to follow up. I pulled up Grotta Minarda.
Ah, that's right by there. I spent a lot of time in Grotta Minarda.
So we've got, and I just got to go through the rest of this. It'll take me all night. But so far, that.
All right, there you go. It's a start. Danielle, where do you trace your roots?
Sure. So my family came from Italy. The Ferranti side came in 1905. And similar to what Ray was saying, so Bernardsville is on the train line. And so the last stop is the final stop, which is Peapack Gladstone. And so the story has it that the train broke down in Bernardsville. And a very nice Irish woman took in the Italian immigrants that were on the train and were very nice to them, very sweet. And they said, well, we're staying here. So that side of my family, they come from Caserta, the Caserta region in around Naples. And then my grandmother's family comes from a small town called Lainola. And actually, that's about, Michael Grillo, what is it, like an hour from south of Rome?
Probably
right?
probably more like an hour and a half north of Naples. It's in Lazio, but southern Lazio.
Yes.
Frosinone, the
around there
province?
by Gaeta.
Okay.
Yep. So recently, a relative of mine provided me with this book, and I was fascinated. And it's called From Lainola to America. And so it's about the Lainolese immigrants and where they went in the United States. And I'm like, how did they? It's a thick book. I'm like, this is unbelievable. All the information and all the facts that they have about the immigration of these people to the United States. And it's very interesting. It seems as if most of them did come to Bernardsville and also Plainfield area of New Jersey. And then they scattered around. Down by Michelle and down in that area, there is a town, and it's actually in this book. It's really interesting. It's called Lainola. And according to this book, there's no Lainolese descendants in that town. They're not really sure why the town is called Lainola. Maybe someone watching knows, but it said, so a lot of the Lainolese were railroad workers. And so during that time, the railroad was coming in down there, and there was a lot of folks working in that area. And so perhaps that's why. But it's really an interesting story. And I was shocked. Just, I got a bunch of these books for my family because I think it's so fascinating. And actually in the back of the book, it's hard to see, but it has every single list of immigrant that came from Lainola and the year they came.
Wow. Where did they get that from? How did they source
Well,
it
I
from?
think whoever did this, I think took from like the ancestry.com database, which might not be 100% accurate. So it has their surname, their name, their age at the first trip. So I'm assuming this is coming from a ship manifest. Their civil state, so if they were married or not, and the date. And my grandparents are in here, and I was shocked. And I found out my maternal grandmother's maiden name, and it's Antonelli. And I said, I don't know anyone with that name. This was the first time I heard that name. I hadn't heard all these other names and all these other people's names, and I was shocked. And in this book, it says only 3 Antonellis came to the United States, and one was my grandmother. So great grandmother actually. So what are the chances of that I was one of like the 3 people came with that name, and it was me.
Amazing.
So I am my family's historian. So on the Ferranti side, my great grandmother had 18 children. So we are quite large. We are certainly a contingency to, I was telling when we met the last time, it was kind of funny because Burnsville is not known to be an Italian town, but there is a small section that we call Little Italy. And back in the day, there was a butcher shop, which was my cousin's. There was a little deli, little this, little that, and we lived amongst ourselves. My grandmother, according to the stories, was like the police officer, the fire chief, ran the show. And if somebody got in trouble, they had to go to her house and deal with her. And tough cookie. She was really a tough cookie. And she made herself quite successful. One of her sons was very successful. They built some of the largest quarries in New Jersey. So there's one in Burnsville and one in Oxford, New Jersey. And they built many of the roads in the Somerset County, Morse County, some of Hunterdon County as well. They built a lot of the roadways. They built Newark Airport, some of the runways at Newark Airport. There's a wildlife refuge here called the Great Swamp. That was actually supposed to be Newark Airport. And so, at the time, and it's now preserved, but what's interesting is like my family was really pushing, and thank goodness they never did this, but pushing to get that business here to build that airport, because that would have been a lot of industry. But I think,
is that considered Northern Jersey or?
So Burnsville and Basking Ridge, where Michael Grillo and I both live, it is on the northern tip of Somerset County. So we are right next to Morse County. So, I mean, I personally consider ourselves Northern Jersey. I think as you get close to Mike DeSapio, that's kind of the border of like the central Jersey.
And DeSapio's family practically built this whole town. Mike DeSapio, he lives on a street named after him. When he gave me his address first, I thought he was kidding.
I give my grandfather credit for that, but it's a nice address.
So Mike DeSapio, where are your people from in Italy, and then how
my
they end up
father's
here?
family, my grandfather came from Monteforte Irpino, which is right outside Avellino, pretty close to Stephanie's family. And he came over with his parents in the 20s, and they moved out here pretty quick because they were farmers, so they wanted to find some land, and they settled out here in Hunterdon County. And my mother was born in Calabria, so she came over in the 50s, and it's interesting. She was adopted into a Sicilian family. So she always knew she was Calabrese, but she had a special affinity for the Sicilians. So I kind of hit the trifecta there.
You know where in Calabria, Mike?
Yeah, the town is called Benestare, which is very, very small, up in the mountains. It's outside of Locri, if you know where that is. It's about an hour from Reggio. If you drive up the southern coast from Reggio, it's about an hour away. North, yeah, up the southern southeast coast there, up the bottom of the toe.
So where do they settle in Jersey?
I'm in Kingwood Township, which is in Hunterdon County. We're right on the Delaware River, a stone's throw from PA.
Okay, so that's like French. Was it French town?
Frenchtown, Frenchtown. Yep.
And I know we could talk about this later, but I know you also have a strong connection to Raritan, New Jersey, which was a huge, and still is a huge
Yeah.
Italian
Yeah,
enclave.
yeah. As soon as I met Ray, I told him, I said, you gotta cover, Raritan. I went to grade school at St. Anne's, that parish, and I think it was, my parents always wanted a Catholic education, but I think because it's pretty much the closest Italian enclave, they liked it. So, but my grandfather's construction company built the convent there in the 60s. So yeah, we have a lot of ties to that.
And John Basilone was from there.
Yeah.
The
So, and
famous,
our local,
Hunterdon.
the Hunterdon County, our Italian club marches in that parade every year. So it's it's a great area.
A lot of history. And so, Michael, where are your I know you're originally from your family's from Newark, but
Yes.
where are they from? Those areas that St. Gerard's from?
No, actually, no. They're from the Ironbound. So
Okay.
the Ironbound at Mount Carmel is from Baronello, Campobasso. That's where my mother's side is from. There, her mother's from there, and her father's from Salerno. And my father is from Vibo Valentia, Calabria, and they all settled in Newark, in different areas. My mother's from the Ironbound down Neck, and my father's from Valesburg, actually, which was at one time an Italian section in.
That's Sacred Heart, right?
Sacred
Heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's also an interesting thing. You think about these people that they came with nothing really. They had clothes on their back, maybe a couple of dollars in their pocket, and a suitcase of whatever. Some things from the old country, and they came here and they made a life for themselves. But besides taking with them their families, they also took their traditions, they took their foods, they took their religion, and that's what got them through once they got here to America. And I always find that fascinating is that obviously why they came here, but also there's many, as you know, Italian Americans or Italians, you love to party. So whenever there's an excuse for a feast or a festa, we're there. I'm sorry.
The 3 F's: faith, food, and family.
That's what we talked about yesterday with Bishop Caggiano, actually.
Yeah, I know.
But so I guess my question is, I know obviously as the generations get further apart, further away from the original settlers, like immigrants that came here, do you still find a connection to the what they brought with them, whether it's the food, whether it's the faith? So can you guys talk a little bit to that?
Can I jump in? Absolutely,
Yeah.
Tony. And I just learned something new. I didn't know that there was another section of Newark necessarily that was Italian. I didn't know. I thought it was down Neck and the area by St. Lucie.
Mm-hmm.
So I just learned something. So we've got to get that on the list. But in the meantime, one of the things that I enjoy doing is, one of the folks on the board, Dr. Craze. I hope he could be on tomorrow. Jerry Craze, he's phenomenal. He's a sociology professor. He's authored tons and tons of books. One of the things that he likes to look at, and that I like to look at, and we met each other because of this mutual interest, and I never read any of his books, and so it's kind of interesting how I did all this stuff and then realized there was someone else going out and documenting cultural neighborhoods and ethnic neighborhoods way back into the 70s. One of the things I find fascinating is that if you go into certain neighborhoods, I like to look for relics of the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they come in many forms. Sometimes they're people. And in some cases, there aren't any people left. So there's little signs. Like I was in Paterson, New Jersey, by St. Michael's on Chauncey Street over there. I mean, there's a couple of little businesses. That's it. And if you venture off further off away from Chauncey Street, of course, you're risking, depending on the time of day. But nevertheless, there are little signs here and there. One of the most intriguing things to me is this is consistent throughout the country, coast to coast, everything in between, is that there was a tremendous amount of pride in buying property when an immigrant would first come to America. And what they would do is when they would build their home, or if it was already there, they would put a stone above the entrance or somewhere on the front facade of the building with their name.
Mm-hmm.
And you find this in Kansas City, Jersey, and everywhere that there were Italian settlers, at least any neighborhood I've been into, that are old neighborhoods like Brooklyn and parts of Brooklyn, what have you. You find like maybe even the year that they put that there. And in many cases, in some of these old Italian neighborhoods that have transitioned years and years ago, you can't find an Italian, if your life depended on it, because they aren't there. But you can still find the name somewhere on one of the buildings, and that's like, to me, those are the little things I look for that are very intriguing.
Oh, it definitely is. Actually, I was trying to find a picture. I was in, I guess, Patterson a couple of months ago, and I was on 21st Avenue, which that was called the People's Park section of Patterson. That was a huge Italian population. Actually, some of my wife's family, they were from Sicily when they first came over. They settled in an area, and also people from a town called Monte Scaglioso, which is in Basilicata. They also settled there. Their big saint was San Rocco. So actually, on 21st Avenue, if you're familiar with the area. I was like I said, I was working. I was on the street. I looked up and it said Barone or Barone was on the name of the building. So I mean, really, like you said, really, there are these relics of the past, and really, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I mean, I took a picture of it because I wanted to preserve that. Because actually, family members of my wife have that name and they settled in that area, so there could be some familial connection to her. And even the interesting thing is I go to Hackensack is another Italian enclave. That's where my grandmother was from. And the street is South Main Street. I think it's the street. It's right off of Lodi Street. And there's a surveying, because I do land surveying. That's my full-time job. So there's a surveying store. And above the surveying store, it had the letters SC. I'm sorry, I can't remember it's whatever because she's from Santa Croce Camarina. It's a town in Sicily. So it had the initials of the town. I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. This is a surveying store. This is what can this do with my wife's family? I go inside the store. There's an old picture. You remember back in the day, they used to have like the dinners, and they used to take a picture of everybody at the table.
Right. Yeah.
So it was from their feast.
Ah,
100 years ago. So I'm like,
wow.
Holy cannoli, this is unbelievable. And to think about this place I was going to for years, and it never clicked. So I mean, you're absolutely right. There are these artifacts. So have you guys come across in your ventures, in your journeys throughout life, these artifacts that they're kind of right in front of you. You don't always realize they're there, but then one day you say, wow, look at that. That's been in front of my face the whole time.
Well, don't you guys think that pride in ownership is something that has been passed down to all of us through the generations? Like when you go into a neighborhood, Italian neighborhood, which is the Italian house, people, they're always, in Brooklyn.
Yeah, with the Virgin Mary out front next to the flowers.
Perfect. There's that pride and ownership is something that is instilled in us. And I think that comes from our immigrant ancestors, that when they came here, they worked hard to get something, and you keep what you own.
The American dream.
With pride.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times they make fun of the Italians, they live in the basement. Oh, they put the plastic on the couches. Oh, they put the runner on the white rug, because you can't walk on
right.
but I mean, really, you're right though. There is that pride that sometimes I think is sometimes lost nowadays in this hustle and bustle of the 21st century, that we kind of just forget that, maybe take a breath and look what our parents and grandparents gave to us, and kind of,
They live.
Tony, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, Stephanie, real quick, and this applies to Scranton too.
Mhm.
It's really true that in front of the homes you have these, the statues, the saint.
Right.
In many cases, the Blessed Mother, but in a lot of cases, you have Saint Anthony, Saint Michael. And so one of the things I've also been documenting over the years were all the saint statues in front of homes in the residential sections of the Italian enclaves that I go to. So, Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to go back to Tony's original question. So you were asked about the artifacts, and we have a really interesting one here that I've never seen. So I hope that somebody on this call can actually jump in and say, hey, I saw one of them in my neighborhood. So here in Dunmore, obviously with the northeastern Pennsylvania, we have a very heavy coal mining background. My great-grandparents came over for the coal mines. There's actually on one of the side streets in Dunmore, in someone's front yard, this person's family, they came from Guardia. Again, we're talking about Dunmore, so of course they're from Guardia or Sicily. That's where it is. This person died in the coal mines, and the body was lost. So what this family did was actually build a tombstone out of some coal, and they had the grandfather's name engraved on it with his dates and explaining that he was lost in a coal mine and the dates and everything. So every time that you drive by that house, you see this memorial to this grandfather there. And to me, that's one of the most moving artifacts that I've ever seen. It's on a side street in Dunmore. If you're not driving around just trying to avoid the traffic on the main drag, you're not going to see it. But it's there, and it's just such a moving representation. So I don't know if anybody on this call has that.
I've never seen that, but one of the things that it should remain a fixture beyond the church's life, because we know church is closed and the diocese will sell the property. So one case in point is Our Lady of Loretto Church in Brownsville, Brooklyn, which was demolished some years back. They had a statue and a memorial for all of the church members, parishioners, and also the graduates of the high school who were deceased in World War I, who passed away in World War I. And so they had the statue, and there was a big tumultuous argument, discussion about, well, what's going to happen with the statue after the church gets demolished. They're going to build condominiums. They're going to keep the statue. So to that, they ended up keeping it. But that is also a really important artifact, if you would, of each Italian neighborhood. And most of them do have them. Like in Little Italy, there's a plaque by De Paolo's. And, in every neighborhood, like even in Basileone's neighborhood, there's quite a few. In other towns in New Jersey, I know there happen to be many, and Father Capodanno and Staten Island. So that's a common denominator as well.
Absolutely.
I think this call has gone too long without talking about food.
I was just going to go there.
I think
you read my mind.
Back to your earlier point, Tony. I think Pat O'Boyle's talked about it on the podcast a lot, that the last thing to go is the food. So that's the thing that perseveres and stays on. And you don't know, like, there's certain types of cuisine or types of food that you don't know the history of it, but when you start to ask around and dig deep, it's from certain regions or people brought it over, and sometimes they adopted it here. But like, we just, yeah.
I'm sorry. In Brooklyn, we have two places with authentic Sicilian street food, right? They call it Sicilian street food. You have Joseph Avenue U, and then you have Ferdinando's downtown Brooklyn, right? Is there anything like that anywhere else, like in Scranton, New Jersey? Because I haven't found any. Would you guys happen to know?
Like where you could get panelle and all that?
Right, exactly.
I only know it in Brooklyn.
There is a place in Westwood, New Jersey. The one of the owners is from Sicily. He makes the panelle. Panelle.
It's I think you came here. We went to that Cafe Maria near my house. The owner's Sicilian. It's not on the menu, but he'll make it when you talk.
Really?
Yeah. Give him the password. I'll show you the handshake. I'll bring Tony down here to meet him.
But we have Old Forge Pizza, so that's what you guys are going to get. If you come out here, come to Old Forge, because that's the pizza capital of the world, and they have their specific pizza there. So we don't really have a lot of authentic bakeries. We do have some in some pockets, but the whole thing is really the pizza culture out here. Northeastern Pennsylvania is very rich with it. Every town has its own type of pizza, but Old Forge is the famous one.
So what for people that don't know, what is Old Forge style pizza?
So the best way to describe it is that it is a variation on a Sicilian pizza. It was created that way by Sicilian immigrants who couldn't find the proper ingredients in Old Forge. So it has American cheese instead of an Italian cheese, but it was done for the miners coming back from the coal mines. Everything goes back to the coal mining history here, and they needed something quick that they could prepare because they were either coming or going, or they were taking it with them. So Old Forge Pizza came that way, and all the pizzerias in Old Forge, they're all on Main Street. They all have a variation of this, and they're all related. So nobody's actually in competition with each other because they're all part of the same family or families.
I was going to ask you which is the best, but I guess they're all good, right?
Well, I have a favorite. It's Arcaro and Janelle's.
That's mine too.
Arcaro and Janelle's.
That's mine too.
Yep. They were voted #1 by USA Today as the #1 pizza in the United States at one point. So they're my absolute favorite. Some of the other ones there are also really good. And then I have my favorite Dumorian one. So we could talk about Northeastern PA pizza culture for an hour on this.
But this conversation is so much better than sauce or gravy. The debate is perfect. I mean, I'd rather debate who makes the best pizza then. But yeah, one of the funny things too is what they call heroes, hoagies, and then they have grinders. I never, when I went up to I was in Federal Hill in Rhode Island, that real old Italian Little Italy over there. So I see a sign that says grinders and hoagies. I'm saying, I know what a hoagie is. I heard what's a grinder? So these are the kinds of things, Tony, that people don't know about, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what a grinder is right now. I forgot.
But even in Norristown, Pennsylvania, they call them Zeps. That's what they call a sandwich. That's what they call Italian hero. They call it a Zep. Because I saw a place of somebody get Zeppelis. All right, this is going to be good.
All the way up to Buffalo, they're calling them subs.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's even like the whole thing. Even with the Americans, the pop, the Coke, the soda. There's different ways that they call these different things, sandwich,
So here's
different
one.
food items.
I'm going to throw a curveball real quick, Tony. What about accents?
Oh, accents.
Anthony
Forget about it.
Rozier, the comedian, kid's really fun. He's hysterical. I met him at Growing Up Italian. We were on the podcast, and he went on after me, so we had a chance to talk briefly. And he's just a really nice guy, really humble guy, super hysterical, super fun. I find him to be extremely fun. Next to Sebastian Maniscalco, I mean, actually these guys were getting me through the quarantine. But one of the things the other day, he did a little skit that was hysterical about the New York accent, and then he gets into the different variations of the New York accent based on what ethnic group you're from. But when you really take Italians from different parts of the country, you've got different accents, whether it be Jersey, Rhode Island, and then up in Boston, I don't even want to attempt it.
Boston.
And right, exactly. And then all the way up in Chicago, they that's one of the most fascinating things too.
Yeah,
we should really do something where we get more people on the board from different parts, just so we can hear them talk and hear the different accents.
A few years ago, Pat took me out to Hazleton, Pennsylvania for the Feast of San Mauro Abate. And so there was a feast, and they had everything set up in the back. So I was thirsty. I wanted to get a bottle of water. So I go up, I said, "Can I get a bottle of water?" She's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "A bottle of water, bottle of water." And she had no idea what the heck I was talking about. She, no, I'm like, "How do you say it here?" There's stuff that comes out of the tap. I don't know how they water. I don't know how they
Water.
I mean, that's actually a true story. Like, she had no idea what I was talking about.
You want a cup of 2 tree waters.
That's probably how I had to say it, but I did. But you're right. It's interesting that the way that we talk. I mean, I talk very fast. I'm very animated, and some Italians could be a little bit more laid back. No, actually, I shouldn't say that. Most Italians are laid back. We're always moving.
This past week was Easter week, and the one food item are those Easter pies that has about 30 different names: pizza pizza gain, pizza rustico. They're all great, but that's another example, the different variations of it. But there's about 30 different pronunciations.
Let's go through the list. What do you guys call the stuffed pizza?
The cheese
bread?
and meat. And
Pizza
it's called the pizza gin.
Pizza gain, yeah.
I'm a pizza gain.
Okay, Michelle?
Pizza pie or pizza rustica?
Okay. See, that is interesting because we always grew up called pizza gain. I know that's kind of the wrong way, but pizza gain, that's kind of what we always said growing up. So actually, that is a good question. So how did you guys celebrate Easter? I know we should have said Happy Easter. We should have started off with that, but we didn't. But so is there any particular foods that you make for Easter that you only make this time of year besides the pizza gain or the pastiera?
I don't know. It was a tough Easter, because all of us, I could see everybody nodding their head. It was just so hard not to be with family, and we did a virtual, virtual discussion. But it was just my brother.
It was really hard to adhere to the normal menu for Easter. Very, very hard because of the complications we have now. But forward looking, one of the cool things is this group is we have a lot of synergy, right? One of the things that we were planning on, and it's a shame that it'll probably be postponed, not canceled, but postponed. And we're going to do it, in a big way, God willing, which is to get up to Boston for the St. Anthony Feast. And Mike Grillo came up with a great idea, which was to get a couple of buses together and have people other than us, obviously than the Italian Enclaves Historical Society, but offer it out as an opportunity for people all to come together and get together and celebrate the St. Anthony Feast up in Boston. So that's something I think we should really look forward to, which is the Italian Enclaves Historical Society would like to take it on the road eventually when things get back to normal and go see the St. Cosmo and Damian Feast, the St. Anthony Feast in Wilmington, the St. Anthony Feast up in Boston, and so on and so on.
There was I mentioned this last night on the show we did, that actually all of the feasts in Boston, they got together and they created a T-shirt that has each of the statues of the saints from their different organizations, societies, and they're selling this shirt, and the money that they raise, they're giving it to I think food pantries and stuff like that. I thought that was a genius idea, was to be able to I was trying to find the actual website to bring it up, but I can't find it. I mentioned it last night. I think I posted it on Facebook and stuff like that. So I mean, I know it's kind of hard to see it, but this is kind of what the shirt looks like.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's
That's
really wild.
Cool. That's really
So,
neat.
yeah, if you search like All Saints North End Feast in Boston, you can find the shirt. and it's pretty wild. And actually, that's another thing. A lot of these mom and pop shops are kind of changing their business models to a certain extent. So maybe they didn't deliver before this coronavirus. Now they're delivering, and even some of them are making T-shirts. So there's a great restaurant in Collingswood, New Jersey called Zeppole.
That's right near.
Have you been there, Michelle?
Haven't been there, but I know it's on the list when I visit family to go.
I mean, Tony, I know you had Danielle Utieri on a few days ago, and a lot of these businesses are adapting. You know, they're doing delivery, and like you said, and I know her and Christian are doing a weekly cookbook. Like they'll send you a recipe every day, and they're all ingredients that from businesses up at Arthur Avenue that'll deliver. But I mean, like people like them and Michelle and Roselle Rago are getting me through the quarantine with all these recipes. But a lot of the food businesses are adapting, and you'll get delivery. So
I think that's a good point to bring up, is that we have to, as a people, not just us, but as Italian Americans, support the Italian American businesses, because they might not be there when this is over. So I have really been trying to only buy my food from Italian businesses. I'm getting my meat delivered from Arthur Avenue. They're all delivering. Curbside pickup in Brooklyn, curbside pickup here in Jersey. But if you can find those small businesses that are the backbone of our communities and support them now, I think that's so important, because who knows, they have to make rent and stuff. They're in bad shape. Food-wise, if you can get your food, your vegetables, stuff from them.
That's really true, Mike. One of the things we talked about, I think it was our first actual physical board meeting, was, and a lot of the things we talk about are monumental, and it's so hard to actually even get close to it. But and now it actually really rings true. I wish we were way ahead of this curve, which would be for businesses that have been around for 50 to 100 years. If there's any sort of change in the landscape, to see if they could seek out federal funding, kind of offset any sort of drop in business. Right now, it would be so hard to do, obviously, and it's just, it's a dream. But you're right, Mike, you nailed it. I mean, we've got to do our very best to help them.
I have to piggyback off of what Mike said, because there's this wonderful bakery that I discovered last November. My mother and I took a trip up to Maine just to check things out. I love lighthouses. That's my outside of everything Italian thing. I'm a lighthouse freak, and I love to explore them. And we were in this town called York, Maine. It's known for its lighthouse called Nubble Lighthouse, Cape Netick. And there's a wonderful Italian bakery there called Rossi's. The best sfogliatelle I have ever had. And it's in this tiny little bakery in York, Maine. I'm sorry. But I decided to follow them on Facebook just because I needed the food porn, so to speak, because their food is really good. And unfortunately, this is causing their business to fail. The customers did a little bit of a GoFundMe, much like I Am Books had for Boston, the Italian American bookstore up there. But this unfortunately failed, and they're looking at possibly closing down for good as of May 1st. And the people are so great. They've been a part of the York community for a good 10, 15 years. This bakery's longstanding. And this COVID-19 ended up ruining their business to the point where they don't think they're going to make it, and they can't pay their rent. And I keep saying to them, can you ship to Pennsylvania? Because I'll buy something, but they don't ship. So, it's just really a shame. But I think with Ray having this Italian Enclaves Historical Society and doing what he's doing to support the businesses, he's shared my posts on Rossi's, and he shared my posts on some other Italian businesses local to me in northeastern Pennsylvania and the Poconos. Hopefully somebody from Maine is going to see that on his page and think, hey, I want to go there before this place closes. And maybe if enough of people do, they might be able to help this business.
Stephanie, you're right. You'd be amazed at how many people message me, direct message me on the Instagram account and the Facebook account, telling me, oh, thanks for turning me on to this place. Or conversely, a business, thanks for promoting it. We got so many people coming in because of you and because of what you posted. And, it's unreal. The power, again, harness the power of social media for positive things like this. It's just an understatement. It can't be done enough. So if people are watching this and they see that and they go and check out the Support Italian American Businesses hashtag, keep in mind, whenever you post something online, if it's a sandwich, whatever it is, going out to dinner, when things get better, or you just posted a throwback photo of going out to dinner, whatever it is, put the hashtag in there. Because it's going to make such a difference to a business as to whether or not it'll survive.
Definitely, absolutely. So
And
let's talk.
another quick thing on that topic, just to continue with supporting these businesses. A lot of businesses are still doing takeout. So if you're comfortable getting takeout, continue ordering from your restaurants that you normally go to, and
Mhm.
also purchase a gift card. $25, $50, and when this kind of turns around and we can head back into restaurants, head on in and use that gift card. So I've seen quite a few businesses in the restaurant world promote that, purchase a gift card to help
Great
keep
idea.
going during this time.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So what have you guys been cooking in quarantine? Michelle, like I said, I've been looking at your Instagram page every day. I'm drooling. So just kind of talk us through a little bit of what you've been making during this quarantine period.
Well, I'm still trying to create content, but also like, nourish myself. So I've been making, when I can, just a ton of veggies, because I'm like just really committed to trying to stay healthy during this time. And I cook them very, very simply. But, I've gone out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I actually made banana bread the other day. And I say comfort zone because I don't bake. It's not something I derive any joy from. I love it when people bake for me. But, you have bananas, you have some sugar, you make banana bread, right? So yeah, I kind of jumped on that bandwagon. Let's see, I actually posted something today. I made like something that I would have never made before quarantine, which was a regatta stuffed salmon, which
That
came
looked
out
really good. That looked
That's
awesome.
good. Leftover manicotti stuffing in my freezer that I found from like the end of December from a party I threw. I had some salmon. I was wanting something that was stuffed with cheese. So I'm like, I'm going to try this. Put a little baby spinach, a little pesto. I baked it. I couldn't believe how good it was.
And then pasta with broccoli on the other day. Oh, it was amazing.
Pasta with broccoli. Yeah, that was actually really
The
good.
eggplant meatballs.
The other
Those
thing
were
is
dynamite.
I'm trying to do this meatball Monday thing. So I did the eggplant meatballs with the what we were talking about earlier, the palote, cace, ova. And then I did make gnocchi from scratch on Easter Sunday, which I just haven't done in so long. I was here in my apartment by myself, so it wasn't like there was a big meal, but I took the time to make something that I've been wanting to just get my hands back into for a while. But yeah, I'm still cooking. But what I had for dinner tonight, I had a hard-boiled egg and a tortilla.
But I think that this, in a weird way, this quarantine period, because it's more difficult to go shopping on a regular basis. It forces us to go back to what our grandparents and great grandparents did, our parents did, of this cucina povera, of this cooking whatever we have in our pantry. I think that's something that I'm not guilty. Yeah,
you would love this. Somebody turned me on to this just a few weeks ago. It's this. I don't want to call it. She's a very young gal. Young lady, she makes depression food. She lived through the depression, and she shows you how to make depression food, like lentils, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely, and like you said, cucina povera, like that's really the essence of it. And it's just using what's in the cupboard, making it not go to waste. And the Italians, I think, are the best at that.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, like I said, I prefer clam sauce with real clams, but I had a can of clams. I made a quick clam sauce at home. I mean, it's, just simple thing. I mean, on Friday, we're going to do, I still try to observe the no meat on Friday, even though I know it's Easter week and you can have meat on Friday. I try to do it all year round. So we're just going to make, pasta with ceci, pasta with chickpeas. So, I mean, just simple things that still sustain you. But like you said, Michelle, I mean, a hard-boiled egg is great protein. It's the good fats. So it's good for you. So it's not like you're eating potato chips all day long while you're in quarantine. Although I guess we could be eating bonbons and potato chips, but we have to, I guess, make educated decisions on how to eat properly, because we're not getting the proper activity, the proper exercise that we should be getting as human beings.
That's exactly right. It's hard because you're just not as active. I mean, I'm exercising in my apartment. I'm going for occasional walks, but it's just not the same. So you're just not burning those calories.
But you also live in the city, which is a lot different than, say, us that live in the suburbs. That we can walk around. It's You're not going to maybe come in contact with somebody. It's a lot harder in New York, right?
That's right.
If you go food, like there's no way that you can maintain the distance that you need to. Like it's just impossible. They're just too small. It's just too small.
I would like to ask Tony and Michelle, in these very strange times that we're in, is it now acceptable to throw some pineapple on a pizza, or is that like never?
Exactly.
I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking for a friend.
That's one of the commandments you cannot break.
Okay.
Funny on that one.
Pineapple's good, pizza's good. They're not good together. I'm kidding. But I mean, you know what? Really, I mean, if it makes you happy.
Tony, you know what's
I mean-
funny? I'll tell you this. You know how people say like, "Oh, typical Italian." You know, I stay away from the typical stuff. By all, as you can see by the content I post, but they'll say like, "Oh, you know, you're Italian if you're really talking about your next meal while you're eating the meal." I'm going 8-10 meals ahead now. I'm planning out weeks worth of meals because that's all I have to look forward to. Really, is like
Completely agree.
Yeah, and also Michelle, I've been like you've been making like these amazing coffees in the morning.
Yeah.
You know what? It's so funny how that's going on. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm usually like I'm Manhattan, right? So I usually go out for coffee or I make drip coffee, but I have these mocha. Well, I found this mocha at my sister's place, which she doesn't drink coffee. So it clearly came from my parents' place, who they passed for a while ago. So, and it looks like it was never used. I'm like, and it was the right size for like one, right? So yeah, I started making it. And then I also found a stovetop frother that I bought like 20 years ago in Switzerland, but it's Italian made, of course. And I hadn't used it all these years. Like it just was sort of in my, like the back of my pantry. So I start making it and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna put this on Instagram. And I put some Pat Benatar on. Okay, I grew up with Pat Benatar, you know, out of the 80s. So I did it a couple days in a row. And then I start getting all these messages. You can't imagine how many people want my milk frother. Like every day I get at least 5 messages. How do you get froth on that milk? I'm like, well, it's a vintage. It doesn't really, you know. But guess what? I just found one on eBay and I bought it and they said it was never used. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might do it a giveaway for my following. But yeah, it's become a weird thing. And I think like during this time when there's not really regular work routines, to have a stupid little routine like that where like, okay, I'm making coffee every morning and I'm going to do a video and I'm going to put it on Instagram and I'm going to do a different Pat Benatar song every day. It's just a little routine that like I've got to, everyone else has gotten used to. When I missed a couple days, they're like, what happened? It's like, it's the world we live in now, right?
Absolutely. Danielle, have you been cooking in this quarantine period? What have you been making?
So we have been really trying to, so my mother-in-law is a great cook. She's from Calabria and she makes delicious food all the time. And so my husband and I have been really trying to replicate her recipes. So it's constantly like, Ma, how do I do this? Like, so what we were talking about earlier is like really trying to like write things down because she doesn't write anything down. So we actually made a really beautiful bread on Saturday, and it took a really long time, but it came out delicious and it was beautiful. So that was an exciting tradition, and now I think we're going to make that a tradition every year because it was fun. We enjoyed it. For Easter, we made a pasta al forno. Not our typical Easter meal, but like you all said, it's kind of hard to get provisions, and so it's kind of what you can get your hands on. So that's what we've been cooking. A lot of pasta. It's so easy, and like you said, just pulling things out of the pantry. I had these lentils from Trader Joe's that were already steamed, and you throw them in the pot and you put orzo, I think, and red peppers and some balsamic glaze. It was delicious. So full of protein. It filled us.
That sounds so good.
It was delicious. We were really surprised. So
I've got to tell you this. I want to hear what Mike Grillo is making because he's getting deliveries from Arthur Avenue. So Mike,
yes, Michael, what did you
Yeah, I
get?
got I've been eating pretty good, I gotta say. Steak, I do a lot of lentils, pasta vazul, you know what I mean? 'Cause it's healthy. Because like you said, you know, I'm over here at night. I went to this place, Cannoli Plus. They have all the frozen cookies and stuff. They're delicious. Before this, I have my freezer every night. I'm stuffing my face with like cookies. I can't eat like apple, you know. So a lot of like the vegetables that last, your carrots, your onions, you know. Yeah, so a lot of that stuff. Cooking up over, like you said.
How about you, Mike DeSapio?
Well, actually, one thing we did on Easter was make fresh pasta, which I haven't done in forever. So we had some cavatelli with marinara sauce and like my kitchen's not very big, so to roll out some pasta. There's, now that we have the time, that's one of the benefits of this. So yeah, a lot of pastas, and we did some sausage and peppers earlier and things like that.
How about
Not
you,
a big
Stephanie?
baker. Haven't tried that yet.
How about you,
I have a
Stephanie?
friend, Tony.
Oh.
He's a meat purveyor, and he supplies a lot of restaurants, and so he posts on Instagram a lot. So he's posting there with a whole lamb, baby lamb. So a lot of Sicilians not in over here in our section of Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, the demand was still pretty high for entire lambs. So he didn't quarter it or anything. They roast them. That's something that was still going on. We didn't do that, obviously, but people are doing it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
There's diehards out there
That's so as well. Well, sounds very Greek.
It is
The whole land. Well, you think about it, southern Italy was run by Greeks for many years, especially Sicily. Stephanie, what have you been cooking in quarantine?
So I had probably the best Holy Saturday I have ever had in my life this past weekend. My mother is an expert chef. She's amazing, and I am not. So I got the opportunity to learn from her this past weekend. I had always wanted to learn the pizza king recipe. The podcast team, Pat, John, and Ro, actually taught me how to make pastiera this year. So I never made it before. So they showed us. It wasn't part of our tradition. Now it is, thanks to them. And my mom and I just spent a wonderful day in the kitchen. She creates recipes off the top of her head. She doesn't measure anything. She was making up the recipe as she went along for these cappuccino cookies that are to die for. And I'm just there in complete awe. And it was just great. It was a wonderful chance for me to spend time with my mother, witness her do what she loves the most, and learn a little bit from her. So it was really great.
That's sweet.
And how about you, Ray? What have you been cooking?
A lot. I stocked up on a lot of stuff before this happened. I was fortunate. I went to Romeo Brothers in Bensonhurst, and I got tons of stuff. I got sausages, steaks. So it's been a lot of meat. Over the weekend, it was lamb chops, it was steak, it was sausages, pinwheels. That's what we call them. Yeah, anyway, we call them pinwheels with cheese and parsley, and a lot of potatoes, many different ways. I do a mash from scratch. I do scalloped potatoes. I must say though, I'm getting so sick of cooking and eating home cooked meals. I could go out to eat for like a month straight and not get sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you know me, I'm out all the time, and this is like I still try to get out there. I still try to support my local pizzeria. I go to the local deli. I try to support them, but I do miss even obviously I'm with my wife and we have a great time together, but also the social interaction, just going out with your wife for a glass of wine or going out for a nice dinner with your wife.
Our last meeting was out in Hoboken, and now it feels like it was the Last Supper.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Hey, actually, that's a good point. So you guys, I unfortunately I couldn't make it, but that was the day I interviewed Lydia Bastianich, and you guys were at one of the oldest old school joints in Hoboken called Leo's Grandezvous.
Yes.
The place has been around probably close to 100 years, and really just like
great to post, Tony. Let me say, I'm sure we saw your interview with Lydia, which by the way was amazing.
Yeah.
And every time you do stuff with Lydia, it's just great. You guys have a lot of chemistry, and it was really great. We had a wonderful meeting, and it was just it seemed like it could have gone into the wee hours of the morning. But
hey, that's the Frank Sinatra song.
That's right.
In the wee
It did for a
small
few of us.
hours of the morning.
That was one of Frank's favorite places, or something.
It was.
Like that, right? You have like a stool set
Yeah.
up there for him.
Not to cut you off, but the legend is that after he would finish, I guess before he really became huge, when he was still working in the little clubs around the area, he would every night. That was before it was a true restaurant. I think it was more like a pool hall. He would go there every night for like his nightcap. That was what the legend was. I mean, that's.
They still have the chair that he sat on up above the bar. The food was great. We had a great time. The company was even better, and I can't wait for the next time we could all get together and get the whole crew together. I mean, we'll have a great time. If you guys want to start shooting out ideas right now of places that we can go to, it might even benefit the places. I'll throw one out there first. Michael's of Brooklyn. I went to school with Michael for many years, and I'm ashamed to say I've been to almost, I don't know, every Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. I haven't been there yet, so I'll throw that one out.
All right, go ahead. Somebody throw.
I think we should go down to Philly. There's this Abertzale's place called Le Vertu that
I vote for that. Yeah.
Wow, it's phenomenal.
That's
vote.
awesome.
I vote for you guys to come to Old Forge and we'll all go for pizza.
That sounds
I
good.
like that too. I like that.
Sounds good.
Danielle?
Trying to think.
Danielle and I might have the same. I'd say in Jersey, I love the Brooklyn restaurants, but in Jersey, I'd have to say Queen Margarita in Nutley. I love the
Oh,
place.
that's a good one.
Love
That's a good
Pasquale.
spot.
I heard that.
It's
I
a
heard
great Italian enclave too. Yeah, that place is good.
Espo's in Raritan. Have you been there, Tony?
Espos.
I want to go. I haven't been there.
Never
And
been.
then I see they're posting a picture. There's a picture. The food looks absolutely to die for. I'm like, oh man. Although I think he is doing takeout, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I
are
think
they?
so.
Yeah.
I think
believe,
so.
yeah.
They had closed down for a while and now they've just reopened. I think under new ownership, right?
Yeah,
Mike?
the original owner passed away, but they actually they renovated inside a little bit. It's still like a great red sauce joint. Like, oh man, definitely like Italian American comfort food.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Now, before we close up for this evening, tomorrow we're going to be back at 4 p.m. with some more members of the society. Right. Do you know exactly who's going to come on tomorrow, or?
As of now, it's we have a couple maybes, but who we hope to join us would be Stephen LaRocca, who is the president of the St. Rocco Society of Potenza, of which I'm a member. I'm very grateful to be a member, and I've established a friendship with Stephen, and he's just a terrific guy. You know Stephen too.
Oh,
and,
I know him.
Stephen too. And his work is just unreal. I mean, the amount of dedication he puts forth in keeping the St. Rocco Society running is absolutely commendable, and it's just unfathomable at times because I don't know how he humanly does it. And then we have Dr. Jerry Craze, I think will be joining, God willing. He's an expert on ethnic neighborhoods and author of multiple books. And then John Viola, who we're so fortunate to have on the board. I've got to say, it's just it's a dream having John. He loves this stuff just like we do. I hope he's watching this tonight. John should be on tomorrow night as well. And if I don't think I'm leaving anyone, and potentially Peter Battaglia. I know he wasn't able to make it on tonight. We'll see if he'll be on tomorrow.
Excellent. And before we do wrap up, I want each of you to say your final words, and I also want you to tell us where we can find you on the World Wide Web, Instagram, Facebook. So tell us how we can best get in touch with you, how we can best see your amazing food, how we can see where you're going, the different places. So Stephanie, we'll start with you, Stephanie.
Sure thing. So I just wanted to thank you, Tony, for having us tonight. Working with Ray is just a wonderful dream come true. I get to meet people like this amazing board and just really have a lot of fun. And like I said before, I have the best day job I could possibly ever have. I'm the associate producer of the Italian American podcast. So you could definitely listen to us and talk to us there. And then outside of that, if you hit me up at stephanielongo.net or irpiniastories.com, and that's how you could find me online.
Excellent. Michelle?
Thank you also, Tony. This was really great. I hope we can do it again. I guess to find my food, Manja with Michelle on Instagram, on Facebook, and working on my website, and that's Michelle with 1 L. You can also find me at it'sallaboutthefood.com. That's my professional consulting website, and email Michelle at manjawithmichelle.com. And I definitely look forward to working with all of you, and continuing to make this all about the food, because that's just that's my perspective of it all. So continuing to bring food to the forefront.
Excellent. Danielle?
So yes, thanks everybody for being on this call. It certainly made my evening. It's been a really great, brief, distraction to what's going on in the world, talking about something other than what's going on. Although it's a serious situation, it's nice to kind of take your mind off of that. So appreciate it. You can find me on Esposi and Vino on Instagram. Love to connect with all you all out there. And I would encourage folks, if you have photos from your Italian enclaves that you grew up in throughout the country, feel free to send them in to us, because it's neat to see these places across the countries and the little pockets of America where Italian Americans have kind of descended and built beautiful things. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Mike DeSapio?
I run a Italian dual citizenship business. So if anybody's thinking about applying for dual citizenship, it's DeSapioDualCitizenship.com. On Instagram at Italian American Citizen. And especially during this time, I'm encouraging anybody just to reach out, even if you just have questions, free of charge. I enjoy talking through the family histories and learn about it. And so even though Italy's kind of on pause right now, we're still working on different applications and doing the research. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love for them to reach out.
As a side note, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you want, I would love to do we'll do one of these shows with the two of us talking about the process and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That might be something interesting. Just
to
again, if people are sitting home trying to think, what can I do? Maybe they can get an idea to get a jump start on getting their applications.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to address, frequently asked questions and all that.
Good. Yeah. So we'll be in touch about that, Mike. Mike Grillo.
Thanks for having me, Tony. This was a lot of fun. You could find me at Mikey Grillo on Instagram. If you're interested in group trips to Italy, I have a group trip company to Italy. And before we go, I think we should shout out Ray's book. It's such an interesting book, The Italian Enclaves of New York. It's a very cool read for somebody that's interested in this stuff.
Got a good-looking kid on the cover.
Talking about. Are you guys have it at the show?
I was looking. I have it. I just don't know if I have it.
But it's a really interesting read. It's very light and cool, and his son's on the front cover. It's a nice book.
Thanks, Mike. And
Ray?
Tony, you could find us on Instagram at Italian Enclaves, ENCLAVES. To set the record straight, an enclave is just a small group of people of generally one ethnicity that live amongst one another. I'm going to repost a Rocco Deserto skit that he did on Instagram about what is an enclave? What is it? Is it a fish? So I'll put that out there tonight, actually. It'll be something to make people laugh. And on Facebook as well, Italian Enclaves. We also have the website, which is the real crux of everything. That's under construction right now. So apologize for the appearance that first and foremost, the list of Italian neighborhoods, the catalog is not complete, as you can see, but it's getting there. And the same thing for the churches. And we're still working on the board section and everything else. So pardon our appearance for the moment, but that's where you could find us. If you want to reach me directly and you want to send some photos of your family or your neighborhood or businesses that could use some support for the Support Italian American Businesses hashtag, please do, and send it over to Raymond Guarini, Guarini at ItalianEnclaves.org. And Tony, I want to thank you so much for what you do and having us. And we're so very happy to have been on. And you're doing a great job with what you're doing. Keep it up. I just want to ask you one favor. When you blow up the way you are entitled to blow up based on how hard you work, okay? Because people who work really, really hard, because good things happen to them. And you're on the Food Network. Don't forget about us. That's all.
I won't. I definitely won't.
You need your own show dropping at every restaurant in Jersey. You
need your own show on the Food Network.
Your lips to God's ears. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you again for taking some time out to talk with us here at the table with Tony. This has been a lot of fun. But don't forget, there is more. We besides this new program I'm doing at the table with Tony live stream shows tomorrow, 4 p.m. We're going to be back with talking more about the Italian enclaves, and we're going to dive in deeper. So look forward to that. I cannot wait for it. And again, thank you all so very much. You guys are the best. God bless you all. Stay safe, stay well. And once this is over, we're eating.
That's right.
We're eating.
All right. God bless.
Thanks, Tony. God bless.
Thank you again.
God bless. Bye-bye. Good night. Ciao.
My name is Anthony Shelia, better known as Tony Manja. Again, I want to thank you for tuning into this edition of At the Table with Tony live stream. We'll see you next time. Ciao for now.